some like lunch decisions, I will say, oh, this restaurant is better than others because I love the one, something like that. So I like to convince others to believe in my recommendations. I like to recommend what I like to others. So I have to know this product is advantage and disadvantage. So from my work experience, once I have been asked like why do I need to use my credit to exchange a chance to lottery. Yes. Lottery, yes. And I was like, because those credit will expire in next month. So why don't you just give it a chance? Give yourself a chance to maybe win a car. Just like everyone doing lottery, don't want to really get something, but it's just a hope. So I like to convince others to trust my recommendation. So in marketing manager, I believe that the core value of a marketing is to convince others to know what is product advantage and willing to buy it. And also you have to let them know that this advantage can cover the disadvantage of this product.
And have you taken any marketing courses or marketing programs?
Yes, I have learned consumer behavior and insight.
And that was a class at YZU?
Yeah.
Okay, have you, because how come you didn't pursue a marketing degree in a marketing program?
Pardon?
How come you did not pursue the marketing program? How come you didn't join the marketing department for your studies?
You mean like
to get a bachelor's degree in marketing? How come you did not join a marketing department or marketing school?
Oh, it's because I believe that if you want to do marketing, you have to learn the communication strategy.
Okay. And have you also considered MBA or MBA for more business knowledge?
You mean like after I graduate?
Right.
Yeah. So maybe I'm planning to study in the national college first as a master because I have no confidence in studying abroad now. Yeah. So I will try to learn more skills. I think the most important is try to do more in reality to contact as many people as you can. Because as a marketing manager, you have to have a real experience, not just a theory.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any questions from today? Yes. Oh, a volunteer or question?
Oh, no, just a question. I don't know if you remember the whole PPT. No, not PPT. When I volunteered earlier, I just wanted to ask if there's any advice you could give me on how I could improve my answer earlier on the tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so like I said, so I was just, again, the kind of the tips, right? So unfortunately, I heard a lot, so I might not be super specific. But again, like I said, you really want to, you don't need to go into too many details, but you really want to shape your answer to be close to the job that you're being interviewed for, right? So you want to really express that, I've been doing my studies, I've been preparing my part-time jobs, I've been working in class projects and school clubs and activities to really build up the skills. Again, these are things that maybe, I think Owen mentioned reality, doing things in real experience that might not be part of the classroom, but I want to pursue those opportunities to really grow my skills and become a better PR, a better publicity, a better promotion. So I actually join these clubs and join these schools or department activities to actually do this kind of role. For example, at Disney. So I've been doing these for YZU. I've been publicizing events, publicizing programs, publicizing maybe it's an activity to get people to join or to convince people to join, and I want to do that at Disney as well. So think about, when you tell me about yourself, is how you've been preparing for this opportunity and why you're a good fit for this opportunity.
Oh, can I follow up that
Yes,
question?
of course.
You said that you've had experiences interviewing other people. Could you share with us an applicant in the past that has really stood out to you in the most positive
Yeah, so I'd say the interview or the applicants that really kind of make the biggest impression, they seem very prepared, right? So they've also, when you ask them a question, so I don't want to say it's a rehearsed, like a what we call a canned answer, where they sound like, like a robot just saying it. But it's something that you can tell that they've thought through the answer and how it really applies to our job here. And then compared to some other candidates, when you talk to them, and then they kind of turn the answer away from, from the question you're asking, because they might not feel comfortable answering that question, they start to talk about something else. And then you give them an opportunity, oh, well, how about if they, like I talk about something that where you failed. And they say, oh, I haven't really failed. I've seen on the other things, oh, well, I have, well, I acknowledge nobody's perfect. Everybody must have some, maybe it's not a failure, but just a mistake, something that didn't go right. And then they just never answer, that question directly. So then they also stand out, but in a bad way. So the ones that, they answer the question that I asked, they kind of, I want to use the word eloquent, but not rehearsed. So rehearsed is kind of like, oh, just it's like, oh, they just memorized something, they don't tell me. But they're actually using it like more of a storytelling, because that gets into, like I talked about competency as communication, right? So you can actually use the questions for other competencies to see how well they communicate, right? And so if they're actually good at communicating their answers to you, then they also stand out. And then again, when we have an interview team, we actually are assigned different competencies to kind of ask the questions for. And there's always somebody who actually asks about their knowledge, the technical skill, right? So if it's, for example, in my company, we need a lot of web producers, web designers. So I actually ask about the tools that they have used and how good are they at using that tool. So the example for Disney might be, you might ask them, you're really good at using Microsoft Office, you use Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and then they test you on your skill. And then the other ones are testing you on how good of a fit and how good are you at doing these other, what we call soft skills, right? Like communication, reliability, right? Those types of things. So the ones that, again, stand out are just the ones who have, you can tell that they are prepared, they're confident, and they know that they're a good fit for the company. They've researched the company. Yes?
What should we answer for the questions like, as you did mention before about questions, do you have any questions for our company? So what should we give the question to the company?
Yep, so one of the slides, again, you just want to at least use the opportunity. Right, so if the interviewer at the end says, do you have any questions for me? So again, one way to use it is to use that as an opportunity to learn more about the company. Because in all of your research, you probably don't have every single answer. So if you have some questions during the research, this is a good time to ask. And if you don't have any other questions about from the research, again, let's say I'm applying for the Disney company, which is assistant manager for marketing and publicity. You can ask, well, how does this position, why is this position important to Disney? What is this going to contribute, or how is this going to be valuable? And then they should be able to answer that question. This is why we want the best person for this job. And then again, this is the more sort of personal type of question. Why do you like working here? Because you should actually get a sense of what it is, what the environment is like, right? Because if the person tells you the answer that I gave you, oh, you have to punch your card at 8 o'clock, punch your card at 6 p.m., but stay until 10 p.m. That should help you, down the road make a decision. Again, they might not tell you that as the answer because they want you to join it. They don't want to keep working until 10 p.m., so we need to bring somebody else to work until 10 p.m. so I can go home, right? So you have to be careful sometimes. But it's your chance to find out as much as you can about the company. Because one thing is about the job, there's another thing about like the environment, right? And then the team. So you can ask these types of questions because you want to learn. Oh, we get our lunch break, we get vacation. Yes, sometimes I give you these types of things. But it's because you're showing interest, right? You actually want to learn more. And again, like I said, do you need anything more from me? Right? You just want to give them the opportunity to show first you're interested, and second, I want to do what I can to actually prepare you.
And how about they ask about like, can you tell me about your failure time in your work experience or like studies?
And then what was the first part?
Like they ask us to tell them about our one time we failed in any experience. So how can we, any tips to tell them? Because I think it's quite a negative
question.
So the tips are, so again, I'll say, people know that nobody should be perfect, right? So there's probably no perfect person. So when you do talk about a time that you failed, or even something that did not go right, so it might not be a failure, but something that didn't go right, you should have learned something from that, right? So you want to share that, oh, well, this didn't work, or our project was late, or we got a bad score. I consider that, I consider that a failure because I wanted to get a higher score. But I learned that because A, B, C, we should have done better with B and C, but we focused too much on A. So now when I do other projects, I think about A, B, and C. Right? And so that's the kind of thing, just because I think if you say you have never failed, that's actually more of a problem. Because they would think that's kind of a constitution. Nobody should never have failed. But if you failed and you learn from it, so there's two ways. You failed and you just keep failing. Or you failed and you learn from it so that you can actually improve yourself and actually not make the same mistakes again. Okay, I think over here.
Nikki, you had a question?
It tied into what Kylie asked last because I was in a previous interview, and this question kind of knocked me because I wasn't expecting it. The interviewer asked, what would you say is a current weakness that you're struggling with? And she said, be honest about it and be honest about yourself. In my mind, I wanted to say, oh, I don't have a weakness. but then I was like, okay, she wants you to be honest. So I said, I have a problem with wanting to get the best out of everything I do. And sometimes it results in a late turn up of what I'm expected to be doing. And I think at that moment, she said, okay, at least you're honest, and how do you intend to work on it? So it's like what you were saying, I understand. If you're honest with them, then at least they know that quality about you. So when you get the job, it's for you to prove to them that you're working on that.
Right, so like you said, it's one of those things where they know that nobody should be the perfect person. So everybody should have something they're working on. And so if I'm interviewing and I ask somebody about their weakness, and they say, oh, I have absolutely no weaknesses. And I'll think, well, then how come you're not CEO of, why can't you become an inventor of Apple? Why don't you Steve Jobs at Apple? Because even Steve Jobs would have weaknesses, right? So like you said, you share what you consider a weakness, but I think also the follow-up to that is how you're working on that, right? And I think in the current, a lot of times the whole being perfect is something, again, that's not, so I'd say maybe the story is, you should, it's always you have to share, you should share something, because like I said, everybody should have something, but you're working on it. Yeah. Right? And I think in the terms of like everything being perfect, like I've actually had that question asked as well. And so when I kind of also answer is, a lot of times, nothing can be absolutely perfect, but there's I don't know if you've heard of this, sort of a project management or sort of a development methodology that's called Agile. So there's Agile and there's what's called Waterfall. Yes. Right? So Waterfall is you kind of work on a step until you finish a step, then you work on the next step, work on the next step. Agile is, you just work on as much as you can, and then they put out what's called an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. So especially in this day and age or this time, where there's so many apps, so many apps, so many websites, so many online products, you want to get a product out before competitors. And if you wait until your product is perfect, you're probably never going to get it out. So what they do with Agile is they put out the minimum viable product. Because you want to put something that works and it meets the goals of what your customers or what your target audience is trying to get. Because what you do there is, again, I'm throwing a lot of acronyms. There's ABT, which is always be tested. You want to put the product out because you can change the product based on how your customers are actually using it. Right? So that way you can change. If you're doing waterfall and you think you know what customers want, your final product might not hit the goal and you're likely going to fail. If you use MVP and Agile, and then you always be testing, you're actually going to improve based on your real world experiences and real world results. So that's actually some of the things that being perfect, again, is a weakness, but actually even now in professional and corporate worlds, they're moving away from that with this whole new what's called the Agile methodology, because they know you cannot always have something that's perfect. And so one thing with waterfall, so the story that I've told before is, does anyone know Ford Motors, like the car? So when they invented the car, somebody asked Ford, like, how did you know to actually work on the car? Like, what did your customers know? He said, well, I didn't ask the customers. Because if I asked the customers what they wanted at the time, they would have said, I want a faster horse. I need a horse that runs faster and never gets tired. Give me a faster horse. He's not going to be able to produce a faster horse. So he actually thought what needed to be done was to invent the car to get people to go where they need, right? So that's why always be testing. The agile methodology is what people are doing now because they know you cannot really have a perfect product. You always have to be fixing it or updating it. Yes?
This is a question. I was just wondering, for example, you are someone who looking for a new job or internship, and then you found one job that you really want to do, but after you check the other, requirements, you found that you not fit in any one of them. Will you still apply for that job? And if you do so, then why? Thank you.
So like I said, there are those cases where there are the requirements and minimum requirements and then sort of the recommended requirements or what they would like. But in terms of, let me go back to that one here. This one. Right, so the qualifications, right? Usually they will always have what's called these soft skills, right? So these are things that you can't really just say you took a class on strong oral written. Like these are things that you can still share in your resume. So even though, again, some of these are very minimum, like a bachelor's degree, if you have one, you qualify. If you don't. But like I said, the 5 to 8 years, sometimes that can be very tricky.